Hey there. So today we're going to be talking about the potential breakthrough of Ukrainians for the Russian defense line in Luhansk area. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about what we can expect in October coming forward, especially when it comes to the weapons supply for Ukraine. So let's start with the Kharkiv offensive and how is it going and where are we now? Where we're right now in a big preparation, so the whole situation is tense. Right now, the Ukrainian forces are trying to secure the good advancement position with the bridgeheads, and especially we're waiting on one specific point on the map. So on the northern side, we know that Ukrainians control Kupiansk-Vizlovy, and we know that there is some land controlled here after Gorokhovatka in the direction of Borova. Russian forces have pushed back Ukrainians that reached Borova by pushing them a little bit towards the west. And Ukrainian forces liberated yesterday the rest of Kupiansk on the east, and now they are pushing southwards. And if we know right now, then Kivsharivka is right now on the way, and we're looking what's going to happen there when Ukraine will start pushing southward, because they want to put pressure on the Borova defenders from the north, so then their southern formation have a little bit easier time to advance. But right now there's a little bit of wait there, and it's probably because of what's happening in the Liman area. So Liman, someone asked me, why is Liman so important? Well, here we need to move a little bit closer, and you need to see these two things. So this is a massive forest here, and this is a massive forest here. So it's a very, very rough terrain to advance through, and it can be quite hard for any kind of advanced operations. But if you see after Liman, in these areas, there is a lot less vegetation, and it's a lot easier to navigate with the vehicles in that area. And also, obviously, the roads are coming off of Liman. So basically, if the Liman is taken, this opens up this whole, or well, not maybe this, but like this whole open area for Ukrainians to start using their vehicles and allow basically to have a more aggressive advancement than going through the forests with hills with a lot of well, like channels or even dugouts in that area. So it's a very hard terrain to attack through. After that, it would allow then to exit to this road here and then siege Kremnina and also move towards Svatove here. That's where the Russians, if you see on Deep State map, you see this red line. That's actually Deep State being kind to us and explaining where the defense lines that Russians are setting up are. So this red line that goes here is the next defense line that the Russians have. But going back to the Liman, Ukraine is doing quite an amazing job. They've reported that they've secured villages in all of this area. So all of the Dibrova, all of the Stary Karavan, all of the Brusivka. They also did an amazing job here at the northern part. They captured Studenak, Sosnove, and then later in the day, yesterday, we got notifications that they also captured Yarova. And that means that now there is defense of Dobryshevo, and there is defense of Liman. Before, the direction of attack was one from Liman. Then now with the capturing of a village that is here, now Liman can be sieged from the other angle. The problem is that both of these angles are still going through the forested areas. So it's still, despite now there is being two angles, it's a little bit harder to attack still. However, the third one, the Dobryshevo, is literally a hairpin that holds this Liman access point to the wider Luhansk area stable for now. Because Ukrainians that are now advancing and fighting in Dobryshevo, once Dobryshevo falls, from this side, Liman has no forests that are dense enough that prevent a lot of vehicles to advance. So Ukrainians can supply significant force from the area that is not hindered by the forests and essentially semi-encircle, or even if they go north, completely encircle Liman. So the forces that are within Liman would be basically forced to retreat from the Russians. And that would open the gates and allow Ukraine to expand. And that would give also great boost to the forces around Borova and towards the north from Kupiansk, because obviously once the Liman starts falling, they will need to support some forces and send forces from this area to support them. Basically, it's going to be a big problem for the Russians. They already are in terrible problems of what's happening in Riemann, and to be honest, it is not completely clear if it is salvageable what is happening. I mean, they're losing this war anyway, so I'm not sure why I'm giving any kind of excuses for them. Bilohorivka, gray zone. We know that it's been going back and forth in a recent time, but it seems that Ukrainians are gaining some ground. And Bilohorivka, if it's taken and then they're able to essentially advance a little bit further and towards the maybe this side of the road, this actually is another big win. This is how do you say, like a back entrance to Liman gates here. So because if they can secure this area, then they can cross and they can cut off a lot of Russian forces from the backside, and they will be forced to retreat. Now, for some reason, someone said that Bakhmut was almost completely encircled, and I was so confused because they said they read some kind of Russian channels. Firstly, this is the only area that the Russians are pushing, but pushing is a very generous thing to say. They are barely advancing. They are advancing a couple of hundred of meters per day maximum. And Ukrainians, even north of Bakhmut, are already pushing back here. They are pushing towards Bakhmut, but even a quick look at the deep state map shows you that they are not even close to encircling Bakhmut. And even better, here I would say, well then, why don't you just, turn to satellite image, and then you can look at the Bakhmut as a like an actual city, and then you can see, it's like, they still not even close. Yeah, they're not. So whatever news someone read that the Bakhmut was encircled or almost completely encircled is complete garbage. Throw it out of the window. There is no chance of it. Nothing much is happening on the southern axis. In the Kherson region, there are some tactical gains in this area and this area, and there is a little bit of betterment for the situation for Ukrainians in this area. But right now, obviously, the Ukrainians are struggling with the flooded river situation, so they don't have a lot of crossings, and they're using helicopters right now. And if Ukrainians are using helicopters to supply the troops, that means that their situation is not very nice. Normally you would not do that. So we should not expect Ukrainians to advance here by itself, because there's a lot of forces in the area, Russian forces, and they're battle-capable Russian forces. But again, this is an attrition operation, and I'm going to repeat this every single video because people are asking, saying, well, what about Kherson operation? Well, Kherson operation is ongoing fast and ongoing as it needs, and it's going to be an attrition that's going to be slow and steady, and they're going to squeeze all the fighting capabilities out of the Russians. So with that said, if you've been here just to talk about the map, here's the update for the map. I hope it was useful. Please drop down tomorrow for the stream, and I'm gonna now switch to my vlogging camera, and we're gonna talk about the supporters of this channel, because as you know, I'm running this channel non-profit, so any kind of support that you get, Patreon, joining this channel, membership, and so on, 50% will go to donation to Ukrainian armed forces, and another 50% will go just to improve this channel a little bit, buy new lights, buy new setup, and so on. So thank you so much for watching me. Thank you so much for supporting me. Let's get to the second part of the video now. I think the most interesting place to start talking about what happened in recent days is obviously Putin visiting the Shanghai summit that they had recently, where he met with some of the leaders from the Asian countries and obviously some from Turkey and so on. So he's trying to still stay relevant, but I gotta say it didn't go that well for him because he is weak. He comes out weak. He is definitely not coming out any kind of strongman. This goes both for what he's saying and for how he looks. First, let's cover quickly the looks. We know that he's been sitting a lot with the people for the meetings, and usually it was before when he came to the meeting, and then everyone had to wait for him. Everyone waited for him in the meeting, whereas he was always late. Now we see again the same pattern. He comes out there to the meeting, waits for everyone else to come to him. Now, additional situation, obviously, I'm pretty sure you saw the video where Erdogan, the Turkish president, is literally holding his hand and basically almost like carrying Putin all over. Let's put it this way, it is not good for a dictator to look physically weak. That's why Putin never talked about his health. That's why Putin never showed that he is weak. That's why he's against all, because he's this macho man. He's like naked torso horse riding guy. He's not the weak, old, barely able to move his hands. But we all know that it's already showing. So Putin is weak both in his positioning and also in his health. Moreover, what he's saying is weak. There was an interview where was only the Russian journalists allowed. And I'm not talking about the other parts that were covered in an international, you know, the meeting with the Indian Prime Minister. That all was covered by a lot of Western media. However, what I want to talk is during the interview, because I heard his ways of his speaking, his intonations. He is unsecure. He is very unsecure about the operation. He comes with a position of weakness. He talks about the fact that, hey, we would like to talk, obviously, with Ukraine, but they don't want to because they are attacking and so on. And he's speaking about this, and you can see that he does not want to say these words. He basically forces himself out of trying to speak to it. Obviously, he's now trying to position Russia that they are this nice party. So because, you know, they tried all of the hardline approaches. They tried blackmailing, like nuclear blackmail. They tried grain blackmail. They tried gas blackmail. It's all failed. Now they want this nice guy approach for some reason. Are we playing bad cop, good cop here? I don't understand. And apparently no one else as well. But it works, I guess, for some, because we know that Scholz called him, Macron called him. Though, to give regard to Scholz, I've heard that was very much in a more ultimative form towards Putin. So I'm going to give credit to Scholz that, yes, he did call Putin, and while I don't approve calling and talking with bloody dictators until they are completely ruined, I did give him props for his demands to get out of Ukraine. However, they did speak 1.5 hours, so I'm not completely sure how you can just demand someone to get out of Ukraine for 1.5 hours. I guess he can be a really good YouTuber. But what I was saying is that we need to understand that Putin is really going to be asking to secure his position. His army is failing. His troops cannot fight. He's out of reserves. One of the important things that I didn't told you about the map is when I'm actually going to switch quickly to the map view so you will see. So when we're talking about the defense line around Svatove here, this is the second line of defense that Russians are basically building ASAP, like ad hoc, because they didn't prepare defenses. They were not expecting Ukrainians to just jump 70 kilometers deep into the territory. So now they're rushing and trying to build. And important here is to understand who is building this. Russian troops usually went on rotation around this area to essentially relax, get additional equipment, get additional personnel into their forces, and then go back into the fighting. Right now, we know that Russians are being reinforced basically by sending these unrotated troops, or like semi-rotated. So they are not fully equipped. They are not fully supplied both by manpower and both by equipment. It is people that just like basically were pulled out from their saunas. I mean, obviously, Russians are not getting into saunas, but you get what I'm saying. Russia is running on fumes. It does not have the military. It does not have the ability to have this war prolonged much more. So Ukraine is squeezing Russia, and that means that the West can finish Russia off. And the worst part that can be is that the European Union, because, well, obviously US will probably not fold, but some forces in the European Union can start being sympathetic to Russia failing, and then they will decide to save Putin's regime essentially by offering them some kind of help without demanding that they get out of Ukraine or something. That would be the worst case scenario for Ukraine right now, because Ukraine is winning this. It is obvious. Every single subscriber to my channel knows this. So Russia right now is in a complete disarray. What to do? They don't know. They need time to recoup and get some kind of new inflow of forces to their ranks, but they don't have any. So they're talking about the equipment. Germany is again being weird. They said that they will not send Leopard tanks to Ukraine because, and this is I shit you not, it's the dumbest argument ever. So at the start of the war, around March, April, they said we will not send tanks to Ukraine because it's gonna take too long for Ukrainians to learn how to operate tanks. And essentially, the argument was that Ukraine is gonna lose earlier than we would be able to teach Ukrainians how to ride these tanks. Now, basically, the argument goes completely other way around. They say we will not send you tanks because it seems that you're going to win this war before the tanks are going to become useful. I don't understand this argument at all. I have so many things to say about Germany, especially now they're sending the 40 Marder vehicles to Greece, so Greece can send the BMP-1s that they have to Ukrainians, which is completely mind-boggling. Like, why would you exchange a modern piece of equipment that you can just support troops with actual modern piece of equipment? And APC is not the hardest thing to learn. Ukrainians have shown that they're able to learn things like this. And then there's like, okay, let's just send the old shit to Ukrainians. They're not good enough to ride our new Marder tanks, Marder APCs. I don't know. I every time, like, I know Germany is supporting a lot. I made a whole huge post on our community feed where I talk about Germany and how it supports Ukraine, but this is a little bit of a joke. But let's talking about finish it up with equipment. On the 1st of October this year, a new fiscal year starts for US, and that means the United States 2022 Ukraine Support Land and Lease Act kicks into the gear. So President Biden will have basically very like option to provide Ukraine equipment with little to no red tape attached. So basically, if he says something goes, that goes. And a lot of people in Ukrainian community and surrounding community are very hopeful. They really think that this will increase the support for Ukraine that coming from the United States. To be honest, I'm a little bit more skeptical. Joe Biden seemed like a person that they have their own plan for this war. I think that they want to do essentially boil the frog approach to Russia. They're providing enough weapons for Ukraine that are helping to defeat Russia. But they're doing it slowly enough so the Russians don't even notice how they boil. So they slowly like put more and more and more and more. And a lot of this goes under the table. So even with Lend-Lease Act, I'm expecting a lot of the things that Ukraine will get will go under the table. But I would not expect a significant increase in weapons supply, because I think if US really wanted to provide a significant number of weapons, it would do it. And I mean a lot more than whatever it's providing. We would get, Ukraine would get everything. That's what I think. Come down tomorrow for the stream. We're going to talk a lot more about the war in Ukraine, the situation and everything. Have a good one, and see you tomorrow.